Are you struggling to wrap your mind around your financial life? Keys to the Coin with Dr. Paul Etienne is the podcast you need. We'll help you gain confidence in every coin through engaging discussions and financial know-how. Improve your financial literacy, become independent and debt-free, and learn more about the opportunities around you. From stock market investments to real estate and retirement funds, the possibilities are endless. Visit madbu.com and download our app, MadBoo Max, on both Android and iPhone's app stores.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Keys to the Coin. And today's episode, we have a very important guest, and that's the neighborhood finance guy. That's Lawrence Gonzalez. It's a friend of mine from a long time ago, back in Tallahassee, HCC, and happy to see that we are kind of on the same path with the financial literacy subject. So it was only right to bring him on today to talk more about financial literacy and see how, what can we do or how we can educate our community towards financial freedom. So good morning, Lawrence. How are you doing today?
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for actually having me on this podcast. I know it's a lot to do, especially in this holiday season.
Yes.
It's always a great opportunity to talk about money, especially for the Black and Brown communities, since we just don't have enough conversation around it. And I'm happy to be here.
Hey, it's happy to have you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start with an icebreaker, to help my listeners to know you a little better. So the icebreaker today is: have you ever been told that you look like someone famous? If yes, who was it?
Wow, I actually been told, a couple of times. I've been told that I look like three people at three different sections of my life or whatever. So the first one was, I guess, Gary Coleman, because of the way my head is shaped. It's like the kid in, it's like he's short, and he was like that kid, and they had that Afro looking thing. I used to have an Afro when I was a kid, so they used to say that's what I look like. Okay. At one point, some people in Miami used to say I look like, that guy said, something in the flavor in the air. Craig Mack, that's what it was. Yeah, he said, you look like Craig Mack. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea if it's true or not. And then lastly, the only other thing that I always found odd that people would say I look like 50 cents, depending if I was really in that workout mode, they're like, hey, is that 50 cents? I'm like, that don't make any sense. So I got a lot of weird people in there. I'm like,
yeah,
I got them.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some crazy stuff too. So I don't think everybody can see. I don't know. I guess it's
I know. Yeah, what's going on in their heads? I have no idea. Like, I don't think I look like those guys at all. But okay.
Right. So now we're going to start right into the questions, because I know people are listening. They want to know, what can we bring to them, or what can we teach them? And information is pretty much everywhere right now. A lot of people are not making the effort to learn things or to find your information. But again, that's why we're here, right? So we'll bring it to them. We'll give them the game. It's up to them to decide if they want to apply it or not. But our goal really is to make sure like people know what's around them. So whether you start practicing it or not, at least know what to do, at least know what's available for you. That way, we can get out of the rat race, because we see the numbers all the time. Net worth for our community compared to other communities is like the lowest, and we have so many resources. And we're looking at the fact that we have so many entertainers, so many ball players. So imagine if we don't take into consideration the net worth of these people. If we're just taking like the average people, it's like way, way lower than what we're actually seeing. So there are things that can be done. And all that I can do is, even if it's just one person that I help teach how to take charge of it, I feel like that's my job is done pretty much. But as many people as we can reach, I think it's the better it is for the community. So for you, Lawrence, I've been, the neighborhood finance guy. I've been, we've been friends forever. So I see exactly what you post online, on Facebook, for a long time and IG now. So how did you get started with your financial freedom journey?
Yeah, for clarity, for deep clarity for a lot of people, because everybody always thinks I'm just doing this because it's my job. It's actually not. My daytime job is I'm a federal auditor for I'm not gonna say who exactly, but you could probably find it on LinkedIn. But ultimately, this is not my real job. This is something I've done as a passion. It's a passion project. It's a hobby, and it all came about because I started noticing that, you know, for lack of better terms, we had the resources, but we didn't know what they were in front of us. And I'll get to that. So when I got out of school in 2012, it was around like after the housing recession, there wasn't a lot of jobs available. I basically had to pick up a job making $23,000 before taxes. That's about $1,000 a month. Like, how do I know? Because the state of Florida pays only one time, once a month. So I had to make that thing stretch from beginning to end. And as I, you know, one, you get mad because obviously you now have a lot of money coming in and you realizing you have a lot of debt. So because of it, I started thinking about, okay, how would I approach this if I was like my grandmother who never made over $15,000 in her lifetime, like in a year in her lifetime, because she grew up in Haiti. Like she made do. And all the stuff that I'm seeing today, as far as like meal prepping or side hustle, all those terms, they're gentrified terms for what we always did in Haiti. You know what I'm saying? That's all we always did. We like waking up in the morning, you know, all these like secrets, wealth, whatever. I've seen my grandmother do these things all day, every day. She didn't go to school for them, but she applied them. She understood the utility of money and how to make that work for herself. So she understood cash flow without actually knowing that's the word that she was actually doing. Yeah. So ultimately, I started using those like inherent concepts that I seen growing up, and I started to budget my way into better wealth. On top of that, there was a time I was living in the quad at Tallahassee, quad being like a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, whatnot situation with my buddies. And I don't know how we got to the conversation about investing, but everybody else started saying, oh yeah, it's impossible for us to invest. The system's against us. Everybody's against us. It's always everything. It's they, the pronoun game, but you never know who they is. So ultimately, I went back to my room that day and I started looking at my expenses and noticed that my groceries were probably, I think it was like $400 a month, a little bit under $400 a month. Wow. It was insane. Like you see, like it was like what was I spending on? I was a single guy. I didn't have no kids or nothing, but I was spending for what amounted to be the value of like a family of 4, like at the time back in 2012. Yeah. So ultimately, I started doing the same numbers for my buddies and realized they were spending as much as $600, $700 a month. And I did the average, and I brought, you know, like when you find that information, you run back to them and say, hey guys, guess what? We're spending about $2,400 per month on food. And everybody kind of looked at me and was like, you know, it's kind of like, and I'm like, this is seriously where our money is going. And this is where we could have been investing all that money that we think we don't have. We do have it. We just don't know how we're managing it. And because of it, I started going down the path of financial literacy, figuring out everything because I was trying to teach my buddies. They didn't want to learn. I was like, I guess. So I started writing it on LinkedIn. I started posting it online. And ultimately, people started to see my journey. And my journey was to prove to everybody else that we can actually become millionaires in less than 15 years. And it's not no scam, no crazy stuff, no Forex, no real estate. It's like automatically you can literally become a millionaire in less than 15 years. If you really want to. 20 years if you kind of want to, you know, you want to kick it back. If you really want to stretch it out, it could be 40 years, but we can all become millionaires in our lifetime.
Yeah, I think living in the microwave generation, people want it fast. If you tell them I can make you a millionaire in 2 months, they always sign up. But when you start saying 15, 16 years, they're like, okay, I'll just stay at my job and just do whatever I'm doing, not knowing that whether you want it or not, 15 years gonna come, right? So it's after those 15 years, are you gonna be in the same place you are now, or are you gonna be in a better position? But that's a good way to find out where your money is going and decide to do something about it. So is getting to $1 million, is that what your motivation is right now? Or do you just want to stay on track and just not waste your money? What's the motivation, since we know that's not your job right now?
Yeah, it's not necessarily to not waste the money, because I think I spend more than I remember my buddies like, oh, you're cheap. And I'm like, I spend more than you all the time. Like I travel more, I do more. And you're the one that really can't do these things. So you're the one that's inherently cheap. I'm the one that actually manages my money and get more utility out of it. I just do what I love to do. So instead of just going happy hour without where I wasn't happy, I just literally rather stay at home. You're like, why would you stay at home? Because I just wasn't happy at the happy hour. What's up with you? So why spend $40, $50 at doing one of those things where I could just not do it and decide to pile all my money together and travel with it or invest it? So ultimately, my goal is to show people that we could live a life that's completely different than what we anticipate or expect. So your life doesn't have to be this thing where you buy like every luxury car that you see or the biggest house that on the block. You don't have to do all of that. You could do what really makes you happy. And my goal now with my wife is to, one, I guess, retire early in the next 15 years. That's one of the big things. Get to a millionaire in 3 years, in 3 more years, or 2 more years. I'm sorry. Never mind. We're getting to that point. It's 2 more years, bro. It's 2 more years, And then also the student loan repayment through the public student loan forgiveness plan is another 4 or 5 years, one or the other. But ultimately, that's the goal, to just see where it goes, to show people it's possible, and then kind of flex on them, flex on all my haters, whoever those haters might be.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the goal, because if you don't, you won't know where to go, or how to get there, or how to manage your time to get there. That's right. That's good that you have the goal to get there. And you mentioned, $1 million in 15 years, which you almost there. So for the people listening right now or watching right now, how can they get there? Like, how do you accumulate that? Because they've already been working for like 15 years and most of them are not seeing anything. Like, what are they supposed to do to get to $1 million in 15 years?
Oh, okay. To start that off, I think that's the hard part to explain that to people. Like in our lifetime, will accumulate based off if you just work even a $40,000 job, right? In 25 years, you would have made like $1 million. I think that's the number. Yes. So ultimately, we all made $1 million worth of wealth. We just don't know how to manage it so we could keep more of it. So what I studied in college was accounting and taxation. So in taxation, we were taught the fundamentals. The tax code is written almost in the biblical text. It kind of weaves it into it. The idea is that you'd want to be educated, so there's a tax break for that. You want to be a homeowner, so there's a tax break for that. You want to be married, there's a tax break for that. If you want to build businesses and communities, there's also a tax break for that. So therefore, the tax code itself is structured in a way in which it can motivate your life. So the more you invest even in yourself, it creates a tax credit for that as well. So ultimately, everybody has that access. So even if you have your 401k, your IRA or HSA at work, you definitely need to revisit your benefits package to make sure that you're taking full advantage of what it's all about. There's too many people that leave their 401k matches, literally they don't take it. They just don't invest in themselves. They don't know how it works. But ultimately, a lot of people are leaving at least $5K a year in 401k matches. I personally not going to leave that kind of money on the table. I'd rather use it to do anything else.
and if I'm sorry to cut you off. And 5K a year, you don't just see it per year. You see what it's going to be in 30 years,
Yeah, even that 5K by itself, of free money itself, invested for 30 years, it almost gets you to $1 million. I think the 6K gets you to $1 million, but in 20 years, that gets you almost to $1 million. It's insane. It's one of those scenarios in which we haven't truly comprehended the idea that you could invest in yourself, save on your taxes, get more money back, take that extra money, have a little good time with it, but then also invest that as well. And all that works going to work for you. I think that's the biggest problem, is that we haven't really stopped and considered what our benefits are at work. Because we're just working there. We're like, that first day of work, you're trying to sign the paper so you make sure you're taking the job.
No, what's the next paycheck gonna be?
Yeah. It's like, hey, sign initial. Did you read this, sir? Did you read this? Sign initial. But you're not taking advantage of all the benefits that are already there for you. And that 401k and 403b or 457b, that's upwards to $20,500 per year in 2022.
Yes, 2022. That's, what? It's a lot of people, once you start telling them about investing, financing, or stocks market, their heads start to explode. Like, they don't want to hear about it. They feel like it's too much for them to learn. What I always tell people, if you don't do anything, go to your HR department and, ask them how much they're matching. If you do just up to what they're matching, at least you're doing something. Don't just leave everything on the table and just like, I'm just here to get a paycheck, because there's a lot more to it. That's money. That's money that's not coming out of your pocket. That's money that your employer is providing, So if you put something out of what you're getting and then they match that, that's at least you're getting something. If you don't do anything else, get that match from your employer, whether it's a 401k or 403b, whatever it is that they offer, get that,
It's the little things we try to tell people, little things, man. Make sure. And then I think part of it too, you're right. The idea of the stock market, what it is, and somebody showing up at your doorstep say, hey, I got this investment, or your barber telling you this is the investment, but you can be invested in your 401k. That's what it is. It's an investment vehicle. That means anytime that you put money in it, you're invested in stock market itself. So there are opportunities, even people that work at Walmart, because my mom used to work at Walmart. She was invested in a Walmart stock, like because she worked at Walmart. So there's opportunities there in which you are already invested, or you could be invested, and you can make the most of your money.
Yeah, it's automated too. So if you lack discipline, it's being done automatically. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to lift a finger. Just do it one time or just revise it once a year. At least you're getting something going. Now, if you want more, or if that starts motivating you once you start seeing the money grow, then okay, start learning more, do more. But at least do what you're getting from your employer. So my next question is, investing money is a really rewarding thing. At the same time, it can be risky too, especially if you don't know what to do. So based on your experience, you've been in the market for so long, what markets are you invested in, or what do you suggest people to invest in, or what should they stay away from?
Okay. This is why I don't like necessarily social media, because a lot of times people just say, hey, this is how you do it. It's going to work for you. Nah, slow down, buddy. Slow down. Because not everything works for everyone at one time. For one, I started back in 2015 investing directly in the stock market, with like my first investment being Disney. And to be honest, yeah, it was cool, but I didn't really make much money out of it because one, they were charging a little this, and it just didn't grow as much. It wasn't diversified. So when the stock tanked, all the $5,000 I had in tanked with it, or dropped a little bit. So ultimately, I learned along the way that probably the best way for people to start is likely to invest in indexes. I think it's simplistic, but to invest in an index is a good way to start. That means if you have any money at all and you just don't know what's going on in the world and you just want to just say that you're invested, just to kind of get yourself out the door, right? To get the shoes on so you can start even like jogging. Just get into an index fund, either an index ETF like VTI or something like that, and just see how it goes. So you could flow with it. It's diversified, and they're up at least 20% this year. Generally, on average, majority of stocks, no matter how risky it might be over the long term, it tends to be like 9%. I wouldn't recommend people to day trade as rookies. Out of nowhere, it's like the first thing I do, I'm gonna go day trade. That's a problem. Like, I wouldn't say that.
If you don't know a lot, because like the emotions is what's gonna get the best out of you. If you're just getting started and you don't know how to manage your emotions, that itself will blow your account. So yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't suggest anyone to start day trading as a newbie, especially if you don't have the education or the training to do that.
Not even that. If you don't even have the money though, like some people they're like, hey, I only have $2,000. I'm like, you only have $2,000. You have a lot of problems. You need to slow down. Like, you need to really slow down and really devise a good long-term plan, a strategy, a goal. What's the point? Like, what are you even trying to do this investing thing? So some people could literally retire off with, I guess, $250,000. And it won't be a lot, but they could do that and go live it secluded somewhere, even overseas. That's not a bad plan if that's your plan, if you really thought it through. But if you're just doing this because I heard from somebody down the street that had heard from somebody down the street, that's not the way you want to start off with investing. I would definitely recommend people to slow down, really, one, confer within themselves, find out what their goals are and aspirations, talk to their significant other. Because some people just like, hey, I'm going to invest this $5,000 of all the money we have as a couple. Like, you need to tell your wife or something. Like, bro, like 5 seconds, man. Like, you risked it all. Like, you have kids. Like, I'm day trading and I'm doing this. I'm option trading. Bro, you have 2 kids. Think about your kids. Like, how about that?
Like, slow down. And
like, it's not, there's no rush. There's no rush to get to this point. Like, first, think about what you're doing and really kind of consider, establishing foundations. I didn't grow up with a lot. My mom wasn't really around in my life. My dad wasn't around in my life. I don't have a quote unquote a backup plan. That means if I fail, that's it. There is no, I go to poverty. I go to homelessness. That's direct. No, it's like a slide downhill right into the bottom, into poverty. That's it. So ultimately, I wanted to have and set up a solid foundation, a structure for me to go back to. And that's why I value, making the best of your 401k, IRA, and HSA if you have them. That means you have a backup plan. And then with the extra money you have, maybe with the extra money, you can now start, investing a little bit more, playing a little bit more in the market, which is what it is. You're gamifying, you're playing casino, you're trying to win in this market. But ultimately, at least you have your foundation that's going to get you to the $1 million retirement.
I want to take this opportunity to tell people to stay away from those get rich quick schemes. Like, they're everywhere and it looks good. This person was flipping burgers last week, and then this week they're posting pictures with Lamborghini, and now you want the same thing, and they tell you to put $500 in something. You start putting all the money that you have. It's not gonna, if it works 1% of the time, it's not gonna, 99% of the time, it's not gonna work for you. So take your time, be patient, learn or educate yourself. If you see something online, don't just go and do it. Start competing with people you don't even know. Everybody's on their own time. You may be at the beginning of your financial freedom journey. Lawrence, he's about to be there in 2 years, but you can't compare your today to his today, because his today was like 5, 15, 12 years ago compared to yours. So take your time and just educate yourself. Don't stop competing with people that steal.
I'll add to that. I have a buddy, his little nephew was posting photos with a Lamborghini type car. And then he was like, I'm in Venice right now, doing my thing, balling. And then people are liking. I think he had like a good 100 likes on that sucker. So one of his friends says, why does it have a Florida license plate in the front? Because he was literally standing in front of somebody else's car, saying that he's traveling, but he'd never been outside the US, but people are buying into the lifestyle, the idea. Wow, it's like, you see the comments, yo, my boy doing big things, like, and people are gonna buy into basically, they're gonna literally buy into it.
A made up lifestyle. They want to be like someone who's not even doing what they saying they're doing.
Not at all. The kid is like never been outside of Tampa. I'm like, bro, like, you out there acting like you've been in Venice. You're not in Venice, man. You're literally dressed to go to prom in front of somebody else's car.
Are you kidding? You don't even know how to drive.
It's really that bad now. It's like, if you're not really paying attention, you could get got by a lot of these scenarios.
Oh yeah, you will, because they have so many, I would say, creative ways to get money out of you. And by you trying to get to what you see that you think it's real, it's not really real, you will get got. Let's put it like that. So next question is, you explained earlier how when you found out, it was about your roommates and you were telling them, hey, here's what's happening, guys. Here's where our money is going. I know that was a few years ago. Now, how does it feel to be financially aware or to be financially woke, I would say, in a world where everybody is complaining about their financial situation, but they're not really doing much? How does it feel? Do you feel like you're an outcast or?
I think there's a couple of things in there. First, when I got to the 0 point, when my net worth was negative 125 and I got to 0, I was immediately happy. I feel like, when you want to jump in the air and you kind of freeze time, that's where I was. Man. You're like, yo, when you get your first home, I literally lay down on the ground because I just felt like finally it's here. And now, to be honest, because I grew up that poor, every time I open the fridge and I have food, I'm pretty happy. I'm not that like I don't need a lot to survive. So the fact that I have as much as I have now, it's more of a surprise. It's not even to my wife, it's not like a big deal. Because even when we hit like 500,000, I was like, hey, we hit 500,000 net worth. She was like, man, like she went back to watching anime. So it's just one of those things that keeps you humble in the experience. And I want that for everybody else. I want people to realize that life doesn't have to be as hard as we're making it out to be. And it could be different. It doesn't have to mean that we're spending money in order for us to be joyful. We could go biking, could go hiking, you could go walking, like all these things are available to you just to be happy, but you don't have to do all this extra stuff. You don't have to be a billionaire. I don't even want to be a billionaire or trillionaire. I don't care for that. Like if it comes to it, I'd be like, it'd still be weird. It'd be weird, but it's like even multi-millionaire sounds kind of ridiculous. It's like the idea. But ultimately, as long as you're truly happy and you're secure financially, everything else in your life just feels lighter. Like you just have more options. And I think what's most important to a lot of rich people or wealthy people is time. When you have the time to just hang out with your kids, hang out with your friends, hang out, even that moment where, hey, something happens, like, oh, a car tire bursts or something in the middle of the road, you're not panicking because you don't have, credit card space. Or if you go to Disney, like we just came back from Disney, and something's maybe we're gonna go to a dinner that's like $100, $200. You're like, because you already budgeted it in. Like you're living your lifestyle in such a way that you have enough flexibility to do a little bit more when you can and scale back when you need to. It's amazing.
It's like being in control. Yeah, you are in control. It's like people are doing things in chaos. They're doing things because they see it, but they don't know how it's going to affect them. But when you already plan ahead and if something happened, I have $200 more I can spend. So if I go into a restaurant and the menu is looking like, like $3 signs, $4 signs.
Oh, no price tag. When there's no price tag, bro, yeah. Like, that's when it's real. You're like, you ain't real until there's no price tag.
That's
like,
right.
We were like, where's the numbers? What numbers, sir? We don't do numbers here. Poisson du mer, fruit du jour. You're out here. Okay, we're doing this.
You just have to wait until the bill comes, and you either pay it or just wash the dishes for them at this point. So now looking online, everybody's a guru, right? Everybody's a pro in something. Everybody's teaching you how to make money. And a lot of people right now are associating financial independence to owning or starting a business, while, assuming, if you work for someone, you can never make it. Like, what's your stance on this? Like, what would you suggest to other people that are worried that they'll never make it until they start a business?
One, I think that's weird entrepreneurship kind of drive was interesting because, hey, not everybody can be an entrepreneur. If we all were entrepreneurs, then nobody would work for you. Exactly. So it doesn't make any sense. Like if I did everything myself, I would never buy anything from somebody else. So I don't know what kind of society we live in, and it probably collapse. So somewhere in between, there are some people that are well suited to be entrepreneurs if they understand the nature of business. But I think there was a book called The E-Myth that really contextualized, and this is why I get the smart words in, the idea that, hey, you could be a good, person that makes food. Like you ever run into that person that makes really good food? Mm-hmm. You're like, and everybody's telling them, maybe you should be a chef. You should open your restaurant. And then you get gassed up in your head and you go open this little bakery or restaurant and nobody shows up. Yeah. And it tanks and all your money tanks with it. Or people show up, but the business side kind of falters. Ultimately, you could be great at one thing, but still not be good in business. You could be good in business and still not be good at your craft. Like it's all these little things that builds into a real business ultimately. And I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. If anything, I'll tell people this, that I do agree that you need to have more than one form of income, right? And every household, in my opinion, in this day and age should have dual income. That means the wife and the husband work, bringing some money in. And ultimately, beyond that, you probably should have a side income. So let your 9-to-5 fuel your entrepreneurship dreams.
Can you
That's
repeat
it.
that? Can you repeat that?
Let your 9-to-5 fuel your entrepreneurship dreams. Like, why not get this sucker to invest in that? Like, why not to do that?
I'm gonna translate for everybody that's listening. Like
in the English.
if someone is pressuring you, or if you feel the urge to start a business, do not quit your job. I repeat, do not quit your job. Use your job as a vessel. Try it on the side and see how it works for you. Try it. Because I see so many people tell, like their goal is, quit your job and do this. Do not, because it does not work for everybody. You need to do some self-assessment. See what works for you or what you're good at and what you're not good at. Because you could be a good chef, but you can't start a restaurant because you don't know how to manage it, how to do payroll, how to hire someone, or how to fire someone. Don't just get into the craze like everybody's starting a business, I'm going to start a business. It doesn't work like that. But above all, do not quit your job immediately just to start a business. Use your 9 to 5 to invest on the side, start something on the side and see how it works and see if it's going to work for you. If it works, ultimately, you'll get to a point where, okay, I can leave my job and do it. But if it doesn't work, you do not lose everything. Also, getting other type of income, like Lawrence mentioned, it doesn't have to be from your own business. If Lawrence has a great business and I know Lawrence is doing really well and I know him well, I can invest in Lawrence's business where I don't have to be working, but my investment is bringing me extra income. Or I can invest in established businesses where that is bringing me income if I'm not a good business person. So don't feel like you have to start your own business. You can invest in somebody else's business and get another income, or in an established business and get another income. So please stop with all that. You don't have to have your own business to be financially independent. And I think the numbers were like, I think it was way over like 70% of millionaires never made $100,000.
There's all types of numbers, bro. Like you got the number that comes to mind with this conversation is that majority of small businesses fail in the first 3 years. Like I think it's like 70% fail in the first 3 years, over 90% fail in the first 7 years. Like straight up, like if you make it to even 7 years, you barely make it. And on top of that, most small businesses really never earn more than $30,000. So you could be a small business person, guru, entrepreneur, got the photos, styling on them, profiling on them. But I'll be looking at them like, you're poor, aren't you? You're struggling. Because you could tell a person that needs to sell versus the person that just kind of like a person that's really rich like myself. I don't really need to sell anything. Yeah. I don't want to sell anything. I just be like, if you buy, you buy. If you don't buy, you don't buy. That's cool. Yeah, but there's other people like they in your face. You got to make the sell because you need this to survive. You need this.
Yes, my lunch. That's my lunch money you have. So you better buy something from me. But yeah, my dissertation was about that pretty much. How fast those small businesses they fail and why they fail. So yeah, the numbers that you see people throwing out there, they're not lying. More than half of them fail in the first 3 years. So if you put everything that you have into a business that you don't know how does that business run, or you don't know how to run the business, how to run your financials in that business, you're pretty much wasting money. Might as well just put it in an investment account and just let it ride for 5, 15, 20 years. If that's how you want to waste money. So learn something, like get a mentor, someone who's done it before. Ask those people questions. They will answer your questions. Don't just start a business because my cousin started a business. Okay, now I want to start a business too. There's too many different ways to make money. Let's put it like that. So
I've seen too many people fail, bro.
I know.
Like, oh, you're gonna do this business thing, huh? Like, I know, I took actual MBA classes, and I'm telling you that I want to do this. Like
I learn from other people's mistakes. So I see all the mistakes y'all are doing, and I don't want to do everything that you're doing. So learn from other people's mistakes too. Watch how someone is starting a new business every week. It's something different on their IG. Every week they have a new business. So learn from that. Don't be that person. Research what you want to do, test your knowledge, do the self-assessment to see if that's something that you can do, and then start doing it. If not, do something else or invest in someone that has already done it or a business that's already established.
Yeah, I'd even say if somebody doesn't know what a SWOT analysis is, you might as well just stop right there. Like, you just stop. Just stop it.
And you're not going to find SWOT in the dictionary either.
Yeah, like if you don't know what a SWOT analysis is, do not go into business just because you thought it was a good idea. You don't know enough. Like you need to know more.
So congrats on being married, by the way. I know you just celebrated 1 year anniversary. Now, in your life, in your married life, or before you got married, I know you're already on that journey. So did you have that in mind, that I wanted someone who think like me, like financially, or were you like, I want someone at least that's willing to learn, that way we can be on the same page? How did it work when you were courting your spouse, your now spouse?
Okay, that's a great question. That's actually an amazing question. It kind of brought me back to, some people would be like, hey, I know somebody for you, Lawrence. This girl talks about financial literacy. Like, and what about her personality? It's like, I don't know. It was like, oh, so she breathes air, I breathe air, so therefore, like, we should definitely be together. Like, look at them. I'm like, I looked at the girl, I'm like, I talked to her before. That's a no, bro. They have to have personality. So I didn't look at my future wife to be as like a project in which I'm like, okay, we have to have like a certain financial goal framework in our heads, and therefore that's how it's gonna work. Nah, honestly, it was she proved it by being herself, just like I proved it by being myself. Like I was always financial savvy, I understood what to do with money to a certain degree to fix it. And the first date we went on, the first official date, we went to Dave & Buster's. And at that time, I was gonna pay, I was gonna swipe that card, keep it moving. And she's like, whoa, slow down. I have this coupon that I saw this week on Dave & Buster's. And people was like, oh, why would you tell this story? It's like, it's not about the savings. It's about a person that thinks about you through the week and saw something that pops up and that entitles both of you to have an even better time. And she brought it along. There's not a lot of women that would ever go that extra mile in that moment. So that person for me made sense. It's a person that cared not just for, it's not even about the money, because I was ready to pay for it. I ain't have no care for it. I will still pay for it. But she was just kind. She was kind enough in her heart to see those opportunities where we could save. And that kind of virtue is something that's going to carry us throughout our entire marriage, financially, that is. Like, but the kindness of how the person processes her moments, that's what I think that was more valuable in the long-term sense. So it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about how much she made or didn't make. It was, I only had $138 in my, I'm supposed to write an article about it. I only had $138 at the time when I met her. And then like, even like a year later, I guess 4 years later, I still had $185 in my checking account. I'm like, how? I still don't have enough money. But ultimately, so it was never about the money. I think it was just about the kindness and a person that's willing to meet you halfway.
Makes sense.
You're like, that was deep, man. That was deep. Deep.
So looking at today, I think the first thing I want you to do, I want you to explain to people what net worth is, because I think a lot of people think that's how much money you have in the bank, or this is how much money Jeff Bezos has in the bank and can change the whole world. So I want you to explain to people what net worth is. And the second question, or the second part of that question is, can you teach people or tell them how they can increase their net worth with their current job?
All right. So first and foremost, your net worth is, in the actual plain sense of it, the dictionary sense, is your total assets minus your total liabilities. Then people are like, what the heck does that mean? That means everything that you own, everything that has value, minus everything that you owe to the world, or things that don't have value to you. So for example, I think a lot of times for Black and Brown communities, because we're so used to the banking system, we only look at that as the framework of our wealth. So whatever in our checking account, savings account, and maybe some credit cards, that's all we process. But in truth, net worth is a lot more than that. It takes into account your investments, your 401ks, your IRAs, all these assets of those dollar values that are positive for you. And then your liabilities tend to also is your credit cards, your consumer credit cards, as well as your personal loans, if anybody has them, and your student loans. A lot of people have those. So that's in there. That gives you the negative, and even your mortgage debt as well. So there's a difference between how much it's your worth in this moment minus this liability. The perfect way to kind of see this information is using the Personal Capital app. It's free. It's online. It's available. Or you could use Mint. It also has it in there, but it's a little convoluted. But in there, it shows you exactly what your pluses and your minuses are, and you will definitely be able to track your net worth. In order to increase your net worth, I think it comes down to three things, very simple three things, and all the secrets and all the books that you're ever going to read as available, because it's not that reading doesn't really do anything. It's the fact that you're learning from somebody's perspective and maybe cementing the idea of financial literacy in your mind with their words and their opinion and their thoughts. But it really comes down to three things, which is also available in the Bible, is decrease your expenses, increase your income, and invest the difference. That's it. There's some proverbs in there. There's all types of ideas in there, but ultimately this is what it ends up being. You decrease the expenses that you don't care for. So if you have things that just around, bunch of like subscriptions, magazines that you don't barely read anyways, and they just keep piling up, then cut it out. If you have things that you do that are intentionally that you don't care for, like going out sometimes to brunch, which my homegirls will all say, hey, I'll ride on brunch. If that's not important to you, then cut it out. So become intentional with how you spend your money. On top of that, increase your income, increase what you're bringing in. If you're young, you're well-bodied. I think a lot of times those ethos that we say have about work is going out the window and people don't really want to work. But ultimately, that's one way to bring in money. Or you could kind of, have side businesses that bring in a little bit extra cash flow that comes in. That's a whole other conversation. And then in the end, you invest the difference, which means that you invest in yourself, in your education, in your relationships, in a home versus renting, because it's not, you'd be better off with a home. And you also invest in a business, no matter how you get through that. But that's how you kind of go about investing. You fix yourself, you fix your relationships, you get married, you get a home, and all this thing goes full circle within increasing your net worth. It got kind of weird, but it's three things. It's always going to be three things.
I think you summarized it perfectly. And the last part of it is just perfect. Get a home. That's if you did get a home before the pandemic, I know you have a great experience to share. But if you did not, it's still not too late. And no matter what your situation is, or 90% of your situation what your situation can be right now, don't listen to someone that tells you renting is better, because those people that say renting is better, their net worth is up there where it's making more sense for them to invest their money in the market than to buy a house cash, not to get a mortgage. But getting a mortgage is always a great way to leverage yourself and get a good asset, because you're going to have to live somewhere regardless, right? So rather than paying someone for 15, 20 years, you might as well pay yourself for, those 30 years and get something to show for it after 30 years. But that's going to be for another podcast, because I need my people to know that that's one of the assets that really going to help your net worth. Definitely.
Yeah, one of the best investors in the world, Warren Buffett, bought a home, and he kept the same home ever since. Like everybody does, like it's not this thing, and you're 100% right about some people. They're making so much money, or they're living in very high cost of living areas where ownership is kind of like it's either restrictive or very much like it's debilitating in regards to how they use their money. So in those scenarios, that's on y'all. If you live in South San Fran, San Francisco out there, and you can't really buy there, that's on you. But for somebody that lives in South Florida, somebody that lives in Texas, Alabama, you're better off holding a home, because ultimately it provides you financial security, stability. You sit there, you contemplate, and then you can also, even if nothing else works out, you can always pass it over to your kids.
Yeah. So like that came about, there's this guy on IG, I can't remember his name, but he posted renting is better than buying a home. And a lot of people
I got their names, bro. I got their names, but I don't know if you want me to bring up some names.
Yeah, you can make the name, because I'm gonna make a whole episode about it, because a lot of people were in the comments, yes. But when you look at the details that he posted, he showed he wasn't working because he had a $3 million net worth. He was just investing in liver his investment. So he didn't qualify for a mortgage because he didn't have a job. So what he did, he bought a house cash for like $800,000. Now, when you put all that money in the market, where I know now with the pandemic, the gains you can make on the house, some places could be 1.5, 1.10 up to 30%, but normally we usually look at 3 to 5% on the regular market. So he was investing $800,000 in a house where he could have just invested 5% and then get a mortgage for like 3%. And then the rest of the money invested in the market and get like 10, 15%. Now it would have made sense, but he paid the house cash. So it didn't make sense for him to pay the house cash and put all his money in a house where that money could be somewhere else. So for him, it makes sense that it was a bad decision to buy the house and not being able to use that cash. But for you, who do not have $800,000 to buy a house cash, or even if like it makes sense for you to if you qualify for a mortgage, to get a mortgage for 3%, and whatever other money you had on the side, invest it to get those 10, 15%. But you have to get a house. And if someone is telling you otherwise, look at their situation, because 9 out of 10, it's not going to be the same as yours. So yeah, that's what I saw online, and I was wondering why people were like, yes. Was it like they weren't?
It's because that person, has $1 million. So they think, oh yeah, if he says that, therefore this is the gospel from the will of God. Like this is how it's supposed to be. And I think that's Jeremy that you're talking about. I think that's his name, but I think his face is different. It's like his name is like a personal finance club or something. I forget that is, but his actual name is Jeremy. And in his actual caption, he actually explains that for him, it makes sense. Like, but people ride out and it's like, Jeremy said, don't buy a home. No, Jeremy did not say don't buy a home.
Oh my God.
That alludes to you thinking that not to buy a home. And this other guy named Kevin Matthews, a young black guy, he comes around and he says the same thing. Obviously, people get the likes. They're like, yeah, we'll never own a home ever. I'm like, it's the ridiculous notion. We need a home. We definitely need to have ownership. And then lo and behold, like a week later, he comes around with like, hey guys, me and my wife just bought a home. Yeah, that. So he gas you up to think that, hey, renting is the way to go. But in the background, he's like, oh yeah, I bought a home, but that's not really. No, you knew that a home is integral to building wealth. If you did not know this, then you would never buy the home. So stop trying to kid the game, bro. But give up your house then. Just give up your house. Why
you know the mistake other people make too? They make the mistake of comparing buying a primary home to buying an investment home. No, buying your primary home is not it can become an investment, but you don't do it for an investment. It's not like your primary investment. So you compare buying a home to live in as renting. That's what you compare it with. You can't compare that with an investment home because those are two different things. My thing is, if you're going to pay to live somewhere else, regardless, might as well pay for something that you can own after 30 years. Because after 30 years, you can say, I've invested or I've paid $400,000 for a home. At least now that I don't have any more payment, this home is worth at least $400,000. Or even if it's worth $300,000, that's still more than what you would get if you just paid $400,000 in rent. You have zero to show for it. Mm-hmm. Don't compare buying a primary home to buying a rental property. Compare buying a primary home to renting.
Yeah, and don't compare buying a primary home to investing as well, because it doesn't make any sense.
It's not.
It's two different things. And they're like, oh, you'd have the extra money to invest. Renters are chronically overspending on their housing, so they don't have the extra to invest. The person that's likely to invest is the homeowner. It's like it's completely asinine. Like, you just own a home. You're better off that way. God, own a home, please. I'm writing an article about that too. I'm like, man, like that same guy comes around and he's like, I have a home now, guys, and gets some likes again. I'm like, come on, you just told the people not to bid a home. You're cold, man. You're a cold piece.
Yeah, so don't listen to those people. Get a home, people. So right now we are in the free game session, free game with Mad Bull. So we're going to hear a piece of information from Mr. the neighborhood finance guy, Lawrence Gonzalez, Delva, right? that you can't find, just anywhere. So go ahead, Mr. The neighborhood.
All right. I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you an easy one and a hard one because I think it's hard to define. So first and foremost, turns out teachers are amongst the top people vested to be automatic millionaires. Apart from engineers, strangely enough, teachers who don't make a lot tend to end up millionaires as well. How? Because some teachers, especially up north, they have access to two things. They can actually invest in a 401k and a 457b. Or a 403b and a 457b. Because the 457b is on a different portion of the tax code, you can actually have both. So that means you can invest $20,500 in both. So ultimately that ends up being $41,000 a year, plus $6K in an IRA, plus $3,650 in an HSA. It ends up being a pretty good sizable amount of $50,000 a year of tax avoidance. On top of that, if all of that is invested at 9% in 20 years, it ends up being $2.7 million.
Wow. Where else can you get this information?
Like it's one of those things. But okay, let's say if you don't have any money at all, I get it. Not everybody got the money. It's all right. If you're starting off from nothing at all and you only have $100 a week to invest, $100 a week to invest every week for 40 years ends up being $1.7 million. That's it. You don't have to do all this entrepreneurship and all that. You're like $100 a week. There it is.
Here's your path to become a millionaire. Here's your path to financial freedom, financial literacy. That's all it is. It's know what to do, know where to do it, and how to do it. And if you didn't know where to, Lawrence just brought it to you today. So
that's it, man. Look at everybody like, if you don't want to be a millionaire now, I have no idea. I got nothing left for you. Like it's on you.
Wow.
$100 a week. I know it's not, hey, so some people it's not a lot, for some people it's a little bit of a stretch, but ultimately $100 a week or $400 a month. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. There you go. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for all the great information you brought to our listeners today. So right now we're going to do the last part of it. We're going to do a rapid fire session. I'm going to ask you some questions. You can answer by yes or no, and you don't get to explain why it's yes or why it's no. Are you ready?
Okay.
Do you have any pets?
Got what?
I
didn't hear it. It kind of faded out.
Any pets, like dogs or cats?
Pets?
Yes.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay. We can't.
Yeah, you wanted to know more, huh?
No, we can ask why. Have you ever lived abroad?
Yes.
Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Have you ever won a contest?
Yes. Terrible though. But yes, I did. It was not great. It's like I won a contest to be security for Tiger Woods. Yeah, crazy, wasn't it? Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Hey, I guess we have another episode coming.
I got stories for days. I lived a crazy life.
Have you ever worn socks with a sandal?
Oh, heck yeah, I'm Haitian, man. What's up?
Do you think you would make a good spy?
I've done a lot of covert. Yes. Marine Corps, come on.
Do you have any tattoos?
Yes.
Can you freestyle rap?
Heck no. Terrible. My wife can.
At least you have a replacement. That's
exactly.
Questions. I feel like with those questions, my listeners got to learn a little more about you. So I want to thank you again for taking time. Thanks to your wife for allowing you this early in the morning to be in the podcast. And I hope our listeners definitely enjoy this information and, practice them. Or if they want to learn more, where can they find more information and where they can find you?
You can find me at all times on IG. So basically, I kind of stroll online every once in a while. So you can find me at my handle, The Neighborhood Finance Guy. So it's available at the entire word, The Neighborhood Finance Guy. And do not misspell it because I'm not quite sure you're going to end up. And also online, www.theneighborhoodfinanceguy.com. So on top of that, I forgot we did start a new podcast called The Financial Grill with Alana and Lovely. So that's good. We're going to have more guests come on, so you're probably gonna end up coming on. So don't worry about that. Like we're still kind of like ad hoc, loving what we're doing, just kind of having a good time with our episodes. So that's what we're doing now.
I need to catch up and learn more. I think the episode about net worth was definitely so wonderful. That's where one of the questions came from. But yeah, definitely love the podcast and the guests that you have and the co-hosts that you have.
Yeah, so, we're not talking about the grill food. We talk about some real stories and financial stuff. Like, we're worried about the food though. You know, Haitians get under like you know, like
they come with the griot and stay for the financial literacy, you know?
Yeah, come with your own griot and your feet tied or something in your own times.
All right. Well, thank you again for everything. And this is the end of this episode. And please be aware we're going to have a lot more coming up for this season. And if you have other questions, suggestions, please, you can go to our IG page and make those suggestions or leave some comments. Thank you very much.
That's a wrap for this episode, and we're excited for more. Thank you for checking out Keys to the Coin with Dr. Paul Etienne. Stay connected via madboo.com and on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook with the username madboocom as we continue to unravel the financial world with tips, insights, know-how, and more. Download our app, MadBoo Max, for insights, news, free stocks, and financial tools. As always, we hope you learned something useful from this episode. On your way to creating your financial path, live a productive, debt-free life, and ultimately gain confidence in every coin.